I know this is a rarity. This is what we call bonus Moohead. This is what Bob Kraft actually paid for in Florida and got it into trouble for doing it. Hi, everybody. It's me, Mr. Moohead. And yeah, Saturday. We got a couple of football games today to watch, including one that's very important for the Browns. That would be the Dolphins and the Raiders later on this evening. But today I wanted to talk about something a little bit different. And this is what we call bonus content. Not that the content is something you pay for, and it's not a bonus in the sense that it's extra for what you pay for. It's just more of my nonsense. But I wanted to express why I believe the Cleveland Browns are real. And I think we all get caught up in talking about the week-to-week games. And, you know, with as many games behind us as we have and our record the way that it is, you know, how is this different than what we've seen in the past as far as the Browns are concerned? Hi, Mogambi. And is this an illusion? I put together a very, very short list. And this is going to be a very, very short bonus, content. But first of all, every year it starts with the same thing, and that's what does it take to win in the NFL? And it's so much of it is through osmosis and through time. But one of the things that we've seen from the Cleveland Browns, with the exception of Huey Jackson's reign, where he just literally shit the bed, the Browns would intermittently win. Even Freddie Kitchens would intermittently win. But what does it really take to truly give yourself a chance to win every time you hit the football field? And, you know, and it's funny that it would happen in the year of the pandemic, because teaching and preparation are two things that are essential. And that's probably the two things that we got least of because of the hey Amsterdam, the lack of time because of the pandemic and the way this whole season has been cobbled together. The Browns historically have gone into training camp, had their usual number of soft tissue injuries, go at it easy, and come out and get themselves crushed. And this year was really no different. Without the opportunity of learning a new scheme, we came out and against two very good opponents, the Ravens and the Steelers, we got mangled. We managed to scoot by a few teams earlier in the schedule because of ease of schedule. And, so we were at least able to balance it out. But no team that is unprepared, no team that is untaught is going to come out into a season and be able to win in any week that they play. And the Cleveland Browns are no exception, and have been the primary exception of what it's like, how not to prepare, and the coaching staffs that did not teach and or were ineffective in communicating their thoughts. From last year to this year, when Freddie Kitchens had a full opportunity to implement a system, if you wanted to call it a system, which I don't believe it was, but maybe you see it differently. The players didn't catch on, and there was no confidence of the plan, and the players just never really caught on. There were moments where the team came back and won earlier in the year and had a good performance, but too often, more often than not, it really went into the shitter, and finally at the end, it completely went into the shitter, and a 6-10 finish for the Cleveland Browns. You know, the idea of teaching is so overlooked because every head coach, from Adam Gase to Bill Belichick every coach has a plan and has a system. But how does it utilize personnel, and how does the teaching influence how a player performs and how a player prepares? In the past, we've seen guys come to Cleveland and it was like, God, I thought this guy was better than that. and they all lived down to the lack of preparation and the lack of teaching going on. Now, this year's a little bit different. We have a guy like Wyatt Teller that we got for virtually nothing from the Buffalo Bills. And we know that the Bills have a good offensive line, and maybe he was expendable in their eyes. But one thing that was always true of Wyatt Teller, he came in, again, the Freddie Kitchens era, all 1 year of it, and came in and was ineffective. And now the Wyatt Teller that we see on the field is a completely different player. And it's like, well, how can that be? How can a guy who looked so gosh darn awful that we were ridiculing him last year, how can this guy suddenly become one of the premier guards in the NFL? And you can say, well, the scheme is friendlier to the way he plays the game. But something that isn't said much about Wyatt Teller is that he's an incessant worker. And he's a person who goes out and just prepares. And the system was taught to him properly so that he knew exactly what to practice. It's real simple when you think of it that way. But if you put him out on the field, he's going to look like Chris Hubbard did under Freddie Kitchens, which is somewhere, lost in space. That's what happened to Wyatt Teller as well. Is he better in a zone blocking scheme? Well, sure as hell looks like it. Could Wyatt Teller have been a better offensive lineman in any system? I believe so, because I believe that he works at it. And once he internalizes and understands what his job is, he does it better. And so does Chris Hubbard. He does his job better this year than he did last year. So teaching becomes an important thing, and players need to understand the significance of learning the system, or else they don't play. And that wasn't happening in Hugh Jackson's reign or in Freddie Kitchens. Players were out on the field and just doing what the hell they wanted to do and really weren't involved in learning the system. And they were still allowed to get, massive reps on the field while other players were buried. And you look at a guy like Rashard Higgins, who has been effective playing at the wide receiver position. Hi, Christian. How you doing? Merry Christmas to you, too. A guy like Higgins, I'm not going to tell you he's a game breaker. I'm not going to tell you he's a guy who's going to make the big difference overall. He's a wonderful possession receiver, but he certainly understands where and how to run patterns, and he catches the football. And the system that he's in, he blocks when he has to block now. He does what he's supposed to do to play, and he's become an indispensable part of this Cleveland Browns team. The concept of preparation really comes down to the fact that we always made a joke of it here on Moohead Radio, that, every year we were in training camp, and, we really look good. We really look good. Yeah, we look good against other unprepared people. The offense looks good against an unprepared defense. The unprepared offense looks, okay against the defense. The defense really looks dominating. And, it's like, well, they're constantly going up against a team that has a new system that they weren't being taught. So, obviously teaching and preparation are important components on what it takes to win. And every season begins with the possibility that the qualities are there, whether the coaching qualities and the will of the players is there, might be another discussion for another time. But this year's Browns have bought into the plan and have shown it as the weeks have progressed. There's also the consideration of how to win. The preface to all of this is that we're going to beat the Jets today. And if you don't know, I've picked us to win 27-20, and I believe we're going to clinch the playoffs today. I believe one of the things, more likely, maybe the Raiders could beat the Dolphins, but I believe the Browns are going to clinch this weekend. And you have the Colts and the Steelers. There's a lot that can happen that can push Cleveland forward into the playoffs. And I'm doing this program under the understanding that the Browns should make the playoffs the way that they're playing the game. But how to win is, if you've never played athletics, you wouldn't understand. It isn't your pedigree, what college you went to. It's a combination of things, but most importantly, mental toughness. And winning emanates from losing. And it's very hard for, if you're an athlete and you accept losing and your check becomes a payday, then I think you're just going to be happy drifting from team to team and being a guy who makes a good living in the NBA, for example, like Wiggins, and never ups their game. But the guy's going to be a millionaire, and nobody can question that he's got himself a hell of a financial lifestyle. The problem is that when people don't have mental toughness and they concede to just going from week to week, which is what we've seen with so many Browns teams, it's like, well, fuck this. There's no leadership at the top. There's no system, there's no discipline, there's no nothing. We're going to go off on our own tangent, and we're just going to get from week to week and try not to get ourselves hurt. William, is there a reason no one is mentioning the Titans losing to the Packers as an option for us to clinch? And the reason is the AFC South tiebreaker between the Titans and the Colts tilts in the Titans' favor. So nothing can be established this week if the Titans go ahead and lose to the Steelers, if the Colts lose to the Steelers, then the Titans are going to be in for sure as AFC South champions. But if the Titans lose to the Packers and win the following week, and they end up with, the Titans would have to lose, in essence, their final two games, and the Colts would have to win their final two games. That is an option for the Browns to get in, because we hold tiebreakers against both the Colts and the Titans. It gets into weird math, but people are saying that anything that ends up in a tie between the Titans and the Colts, the Titans have the tiebreaker to win the AFC South. And that means that if the Colts end up tied with the Titans, they're going to need help. Unless they win their final two games, they're going to need help from somebody else. I hope that explains that decently. But again, mental toughness takes many forms. The Cleveland Browns came out unprepared this year. It was obvious. And when you get your ass kicked 38-6 and the Steelers run over you, you're not ready to play the better teams, and you're struggling with a new system. And it was something that, frankly, I anticipated. And how quickly a team gets up to speed, I didn't expect that this would be the year that the team would really get up to speed the way they have. But I was hoping that this would be a real steadying year for them to really, as the season progressed, show that they had really caught on to the system and gave 9-7 a good run and gave the playoffs a little run this year. I could not have envisioned, being where we are right now. But again, mental toughness takes many different forms. First of all, it's like I said, winning comes from losing. You have to be in the position and live the moment. Any athlete, if an athlete goes to the Olympic Games, back when the Olympic Games really mattered and they were amateur athletes, not professionals, and they knew that their chance was really once every 4 years. If you lost and you were considered a favorite in the Olympics, excuse the background noise. We have the house being cleaned here the day after Christmas. So pardon the noises. If you lost, you had to wait 4 long years to get it back. That takes a lot of mental toughness to be able to get yourself really psyched up to be able to do that kind of stuff. When it comes up your turn one last time, you either get it or you don't get it. Then there are guys like Al Order, who was the discus thrower, who did it multiple times, who have the ability to rise to the occasion over and over again. And that takes extreme mental toughness to win 3 gold medals over what amounted to, I want to say, my goodness, was it a 12 or 16 year period? Because I think he missed one of the Olympics. Just an unbelievable feat. So mental toughness comes from losing and from being able to analyze why you lost and to be able to, as they say, we've got to do better next time. But it's not do better just from a standpoint of personally. It is doing all the things better. And I can liken it to playing in tennis tournaments. I grew up playing the game of tennis, but I was a working man. I didn't have time to play in tennis tournaments. So that didn't start for me until my retirement. And I didn't play in any kind of tennis tournaments until I was like 43, 44 years old. And man, in the beginning, you get out in the first round again, and they're all good players that enter these things. And, it's like the choke was in play. And it was like, wow. I get into a tight third set and I choked, man, and I lost. And it's like, I got to do something to overcome the nerves. Getting close can become a real negative if you just fail in the end every time because fear consumes you. So you have to analyze what it is you're doing wrong. For me, what I did was a cognitive behavior approach in which I did biofeedback. And a lot of athletes do this today. And it is keeping your breathing in sync. It keeps your body in a zone so that, choking is a psychological state in which your breathing rate is accelerated. You become flat-footed. You start learning how to hop around, keep yourself moving, put bad points behind you, focus on what's ahead, and find your moment in a zone where your respiration, your respiratory rate, and your heart rate are in the ideal zone. There is a scientific basis for choking, but it takes focus. And part of that is brainwave training. And I did that as well. And it was amazing the results that I got and the calming effect. And I found myself in situations that I had been in before. And that first breakthrough, when you overcome adversity and you win in that third set to win your first 3-set tournament match, that becomes a big deal. And then going from the first to the second round, the players get better because from there you're playing winner against winner. And getting deep into tournaments and how to play people. And sometimes guys you couldn't beat, but how to play them as tough as you could play them. And, if those who remember Mike Babb, the center for the Cleveland Browns, back when Bernie Kosar was the quarterback, what they said about him was 10 miles of bad road. And that's what I wanted to be on a tennis court. If I couldn't win, I wanted to be 10 miles of bad road. So if you're going to get by me, you're going to feel it. And that was my mindset. So losing isn't a bad thing until it becomes habitual, which is what has happened to the Cleveland Browns over the course of the last couple of decades. Now, besides mental toughness and losing, mental toughness takes on another important role. I'm going to point to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers started out 11-0, and now they're 11-3, and they've come back to the pack. What's going on in Pittsburgh? Well, for some reason, Ben Roethlisberger is back to throwing 50 times a game because their running game has failed. And Ben Roethlisberger, honestly, doesn't look like the Ben Roethlisberger of years past. And why would he? He looks very stiff in cold weather. His arm strength is not as great throwing the ball deep down the field. His accuracy is not as great, and his wide receivers are dropping passes. It is a lack of confidence right now that's going on within their system. Now, they can regroup because they've got guys on that team who've been there and done that. But you can see that just because you win 11 games in a row, mental toughness can be tested in many different ways. So mental toughness for the Cleveland Browns was discovered early. You go out there, and not only do you get your ass handed to you by the Ravens, the press gets down on you and says, you're not the real deal. You guys are imposters. And the same stuff comes up all over again. Players start kicking themselves. And the next thing you know, you've lost a bunch of games in a row. Different this year. The Browns were able to right the ship and win some close, although not particularly impressive games early in the season. They got a second chance to prove themselves and failed miserably against the Steelers, and the press became even more merciless about this. And so Baker Mayfield came under such close scrutiny that, listening to the talking heads, rant about how Baker Mayfield was nothing and that he was a lousy pick and that he was the new Johnny Manziel. I was hearing that as often as I was seeing him on Progressive commercials. Not a healthy thing. And it takes somebody who's strong to overcome that kind of stuff. So mental toughness for the individual players to be able to get through all the negativity around them. How to win goes further than that. Today's NFL is very different than the NFL of years past. I remember they used to say things like the team that possesses the ball last, and that's what the 2-minute warning is for, and you've got to have a 2-minute offense. Well, for goodness sakes, the Cleveland Browns scored in 57 seconds. Now it's a minute and a half, folks. If you have the ball with a minute and a half left, you're expected to win that football game. And an entire football game can come down to 90 seconds of time with the proper number of timeouts if you've been coached and managed the game properly. Now, some teams like the Ravens have a great kicker and they can win with the field goal. Other teams like the Browns have to stick it in the end zone because they can't rely on a kicker like Parkey. But be that as it may, so many games come down to these final possessions. And guys like Tom Brady, and once again proven yesterday, Drew Brees, when he came back from an injury to his ribs, like Baker Mayfield did, although Brees's was a little bit more serious than Baker's, he came back the week before and he did not look good. And, the fact is people started questioning, is he really sick or what? Has he got a problem? Is he injured and should he be playing at all? Well, those questions were answered yesterday. Now, weren't they? Because good players put bad performances behind them and they don't use those types of excuses like injuries, coming off of injuries, as excuses. Same thing with Baker Mayfield. He was hurting. When you hurt your ribs, it's hard as hell to throw a football. It's hard as hell to take any hit whatsoever. But it's the strength of the courage to be able to come back. How to win comes down to, again, a mindset. Have you done the final 90-second offensive run before? Do you know where to go to, where on the field to throw the ball? And then the play calling comes into effect and the teaching that the coaching staff did previously in the preseason or earlier in the season in the case of the Browns. So, winning is mental toughness. It comes from losing, and situational football that you can only learn by being in. And if you're in the game with 90 seconds left and the ball's in your hands and a touchdown wins the game, you get into that system often enough in that situation, and you are going to eventually either become a bust team and a failure, or you're going to get good at it. The difference between the New England Patriots with Cam Newton and with Tom Brady is that Cam Newton does not have any confidence. He does not believe he's going to win. And quite frankly, from his demeanor on the sidelines, he's happy he's got a good payday. Tom Brady will scream and yell at people, but he will demand from people. But he's done it so many times and come back. And this just 2 weeks ago came back from 17 points down in a football game. You can't question the authenticity of somebody who's been there and done that. The final thing about winning is remembering. And remembering is something that is a yardstick. I can tell you many times guys who I've lost to on the tennis court, and I remembered the matches, because you always remember the losses more than you remember the wins. And I remembered exactly how they played. Guys who comped me an attitude on the court too. And if I lost to those people because I was thrown off psychologically, I remembered those people, and I remembered how they went about things, and I became more resolute and how I was going to attack them. And on a tennis court, you can attack people any number of ways. One, you can hit a guy in the throat with your racket and get disqualified. That's not good. Although it's really funny watching them make noises when their Adam's apple is crushed. Other than that, the ways that you do it is you realize, how are they getting the job done? Are they quick on their feet? If they're fast, then slow them down. It's like, well, how do you slow down a guy who's fast? And the answer is keep hitting the ball behind them. The more you hit in front of them, the more they can open up and use their speed and run down every ball. But if you confuse them and wrong foot them consistently, you take the advantage of speed away from a player. It's using the full length and width of the court. It's hitting angles, hitting drop shots, hitting lobs, hitting deep balls into the court, keeping them off balance and forcing them to hit into more difficult situations. If they're a big topspin hitter, it's hitting a flat ball against them so the ball doesn't come up off the surface, so that big Western grip forehand that they use will shank balls off the frame, and you'll get unforced errors. Remembering is what the Cleveland Browns did with the Tennessee Titans. They shot their fucking mouths off. What they did is they came out after whipping the Browns soundly in last year's season opener, which set a horrible tone for the season. The Browns didn't forget. They remembered what the Titans players were saying, including the tight end, from, I think Walker is his name, was saying about the Browns afterwards. And, oh, they're exactly what we thought they were, and they're a paper tiger, yada, yada, yada. And you bring that forward with you. You remember what it takes and how inspired you need to be, because you have to be as inspired as they were the year before when they kicked your ass. So that has a big thing to do with it. Remembering who the Ravens and the Steelers are, and we still have to conquer those two divisional foes. Finally, a lot of people are asking about, what about a Super Bowl? And it's like, Super Bowl is a different thing. And I'll take you down this road, and then we'll be done with this whole little mini analysis. The Cleveland Cavaliers, when LeBron James came back, it wasn't like they just did what the Lakers did and said, oh, we got an instant team surrounding LeBron James and whoop, right to the finals and whoop, championship. Doesn't work that way. For teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers, getting LeBron back a second time was a great thing. But things happened that hurt the Cavaliers. Olynyk intentionally injuring Kevin Love's arm in the Celtics game in LeBron's first year back with the Cavaliers, just destroyed the Cavaliers' chances because we were thin. We didn't have nearly enough depth to cover for that. The following year, we get to the finals. We get to the Warriors, and Kyrie Irving's knee goes. And there's no way you can take 24 points a game and your primary ball handler away. And we went up 2-1 in the series, but then we just couldn't hold on. So from failure comes success. And eventually the third time was the charm, and you get into a game 7, and suddenly those people that did not or were not able to contribute in the previous incarnations of your finals run, Kevin Love, people forget, he rebounded his ass off, but moving his feet on the final play, ISO'd with Steph Curry and getting the stop, if you can imagine that. That was his moment in the spotlight after the disappointment of having to be taken off the court with a shoulder injury. And you know that Kyrie Irving and his bad knee the year before, everything was answered with the last three. And the man who put it all together and brought the team together and is the greatest player in NBA history with an unbelievable from behind rundown block that set up Kyrie Irving for the opportunity. Winning a Super Bowl requires not only winning all your playoff games, but it's having that magical moment. It's when it comes down to Ray Allen in the corner for three, for the Heat. It comes down to a pivotal Michael Jordan last-second shot. When you're in the moment, you have to get there, but winning a Super Bowl takes some degree of luck and the ultimate focus of bringing your biggest, baddest A game on the field. The reason I bring this up is because the Cleveland Browns are not going to win the Super Bowl, but neither are the Pittsburgh Steelers. You see, the Browns may actually have, at this point, more intestinal fortitude than the Steelers, because the Steelers, they have a quarterback who's on the downside, and the team knows it. And if they're not able to run the football, there aren't many miracles left in 38-year-old Ben Roethlisberger's body. Roethlisberger has said he wants to come back and play next year. I think he should reconsider based on what I'm seeing as the weeks progress. He's looking slower and stiffer as week after week goes by. The Cleveland Browns have a legitimate chance of winning a playoff game. They do. The Browns have no real chance to beat a team like the Kansas City Chiefs. And it would be questionable whether they could beat a Buffalo Bills team. Not to say something bad about the Cleveland Browns, but we're not a complete entity yet. We're doing what we're doing really without a defense on the field. And I know you're going to say, well, we held a team to 6 points. That Colt McCoy. That's Colt McCoy. That's how many points he scored when he was leading our team to a 6-15 record under him. He can score 10 to 17 points in a week, but you better have the best defense in the league or the worst weather conditions you can imagine to have a chance to win with a quarterback like that. We have a quarterback in Baker Mayfield who is understanding the system that he's in, and he's learning the confidence to step forward and put his weight into throws. And I think that Baker Mayfield, based on what I've seen against the Ravens, against the Titans, he has proven to me that he has the ability to march down the field in the 90 seconds that's requisite to win close games in the NFL. Those things I believe. And I believe that the Cleveland Browns will win tomorrow and will get into the playoffs. I think if we have a chance to play the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's going to be a hurdle. It's a hurdle emotionally, and we have to remember. We have to remember who they are and play accordingly. When I knew this Browns team was absolutely ready for the playoffs, if things fell their way, not only schedule-wise, but results-wide, league-wide, was against the Titans, because the Browns came out like it was a continuation of the last game, starting all over. And it was like, this is what we meant to do to you to start out the game. Don't you think that you're going to impose your will on us? When I saw the Browns have the capability to get out to that kind of a lead and put their foot on somebody's throat, granted, the second half wasn't what I wanted it or what you wanted it to be, but coming out prepared for a game and executing, it's such an important step. And it's such an important step in a Super Bowl. And again, a lot of teams don't just walk into the Super Bowl and win the first time. There's that being there factor, and it's the calmness of being there and knowing that you've been there before and it is a one-off. It is just like Al Order in the Olympics. It may be a once in 4 years, once in 2 years, once in 6 year opportunity, but you come to that point and you perform. That's what it takes to win a Super Bowl. And then there are injuries and the things that you couldn't control, whether it was Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving. Hello, Hammer Time. The fact is that the Warriors, Christian, and when they got Durant, that's just Durant's way of saying, I want a ring, and then I'm going off somewhere else to be a big man on campus somewhere else. No, the NBA is really a stacked league. The Browns are doing this with a less than perfect defensive scenario and with a lot of no-name players. I mean, you're talking about Jedrick Wills, God willing that he plays, tomorrow, and Wyatt Teller, who's not going to play, but guys who are they, and we're seeing guys who know better, Olivier Vernon and Sheldon Richardson, now starting to contribute because in their past, they have played in important games and they're engaged now. They believe that the team's moving forward, and they may have thought that they were peddled to Cleveland and that it was just a paycheck and a dead end. But it's turned out to be more than that, and you're seeing these players come to life now. And hopefully Denzel Ward is going to learn, he's going to, God forbid, if the Browns get into the playoffs and end up winning a game and have to play the Kansas City Chiefs, then Denzel Ward's going to be seeing Tyreek Hill in his sleep. That's the way it works. Joe, Merry Christmas, and it's nice to see people, and General Dog, I'm glad we'll be in the playoffs, but we don't have the defense to make it. Yeah, anything can happen. You got to be realistic. We don't have the defense yet, but the fact is we've put ourselves in a position to get there. And that's the important thing. And a win against the Jets should get us there unless, again, if everybody else wins out and we don't win out, then they rose to the occasion more than we did. And the defense is going to have to step up and get turnovers. They're not going to be able to stop teams on a regular basis. They've got to get turnovers, and that's going to be the way this will happen for this team. My headphones are old school, dude. These are about as old as you get. Everybody's I'm an old school broadcaster, old school broad chaser. At any rate, and General Dog, he's hated because he beats the odds and proves people wrong. And the press doesn't like when a guy, it was the same reason that they hated Muhammad Ali when he first started, because he was brash. He told everybody how good he was, and he really was that good, and he ended up proving it. People don't like, people like the aw shucks kind of fake, when the guy is, got 16 Maseratis at home and he's got bling out the ass, but he's, aw shucks, like that. That's what the press like. Oh, what a down-to-earth guy he is with his 16 Maseratis and his bling, But if, God forbid, if you should come out and have confidence and express and vocalize that confidence, they're looking for the next fly to swat. And, thank God that Baker's playing well. They've moved on to other things. We'll see how Sam Darnold does, tomorrow. So at any rate, I want to say Merry Christmas to everybody out there. And thank you so much for supporting the program. And I didn't do a show yesterday because family comes first. We had family here. And when that happens, everything else kind of gets put in the second place. But I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. New Year's coming up. Make sure that, you're safe, you're healthy, and you're happy. If you do get together with friends, make sure they get tested. No, just have a good time. And maybe we'll be celebrating the whole thing, the Browns playoff scenario. I'm going to be watching the Dolphins and Raiders tonight and seeing what happens. And, Derek Carr is supposed to play. And that will make the Raiders a tougher team for the Dolphins to beat. And the Dolphins are not notorious for putting up a ton of points here recently since Tua got a little shaken up on the field. And we know in our bust game in the second half of the season, the Raiders ran over us. So the Raiders don't have it every week, but they have it in them to do that and to play a physical brand of ball. We'll see what happens with that. Isn't that the truth, Jim? Thanks for doing this group session. Everybody, take care of yourselves. Have a good Saturday, and let's get down to business tomorrow with football, halftime and post-game show right here on the Moohead Radio Network. I appreciate all your help, and until tomorrow at the half, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night. Day. Have a good one.